Good afternoon to everybody. My presentation will be quite different from the other presentation because I am not explaining you any product, but I wanted to share with you what we have done in Italy in the past years as far as concerns the RCP and RAP. So I'm talking to you about real experiences. First of all, short introduction of myself. I am an old guy. I started working with IBM many years ago, so I'm ready for retirement, I hope. And basically, I'm always worked in the banking environment, so mainly in the area that is the front-end environment. And I've designed a lot of framework from the old terminals when we used developed code in assembler language or in very old languages. And I led a lot of projects in Italy and also in other countries. So let me, first of all, introduce the business context, where we are talking about, okay? Basically, a banking front office application is the standard application that is used by a banking operator. When you go to a bank, when you go to the front office to do some banking transaction, you are dealing with a front office application, okay? Typically, a front office application is a two-tier application. That means we have the client side and the server side. And typically, the server side is running on the central site, okay? I've seen a lot of this application in these 35 years, but basically, from a business point of view, is always the same. You go to the bank, you put some money into your checking account, or you get some cash from your checking account. So basically, what has been changed in these years is the technology, is the language. Basically, a bank is sometimes decides to change the application not because they want to add new features, but because the hardware, the software, the language is not supported anymore, basically. From an average point of view, a front office application it has a period, a life cycle of about 10, 15 years. Every bank, after 10, 15 years, they decide to change the application. And in order to build a banking application, a front office application, typically is from a money point of view, from a bank, is typically a couple of million euros. Okay, so it's not peanuts. Okay, so basically we started considering RCP in 2004. So our experience is with Eclipse RCP goes back to 2004 when we started investigating how to develop or which application platform to use in order to develop new applications. And at that time, we thought that the Eclipse could be a nice platform because we could reuse the concept of a perspective, of a view, and to translate that into a business value. So, for example, when we use Eclipse as a development environment, we have a development perspective, we have a debug perspective. You could consider that in the banking application, you may have a front office operator, you may have a back office operator, you have a supervisor, you have a responsible for the application, so you may have different way of running the same business functions, okay? Rearranging the views. So basically we could say, okay, we could reuse the same concept of an IDE move into a real banking application. Okay, but at that time it was not easy at least from my personal point of view, to convince my management to go in that way. Okay? First of all, okay, it was the time when everybody was looking into the web environment. So it's not so easy to go to the management and say, no, we should not go web, we should go RCP. And the other question was, what is RCP? No skill, no knowledge at all, no documentation. And of course, the open source concept in a commercial society as IBM was not easy to install it. In any case, we started. In 2005, we had the first proof of concept in a bank, and we started our first project in 2006. So in 2006, we started build a team, okay, to create our first real business application with RCP. Okay, I don't want to describe all the stuff. Okay, what you see in the left-hand side, the client node, that is how the RCP node, okay, with all the components, is included into the main business application architecture, okay, as a client that requests services from a back-end, okay? What I have seen that basically we have used RCP for two main concepts, okay? The main concept was to have RCP as an application platform. So basically we have built application on top of RCP. Another point of usage was that we have built RCP also to build an integration desktop. So basically, a banking operator doesn't have, let's say, the Windows desktop, but is using an RCP desktop, with everything is included into this desktop. And what is real important that we have been able to customize the desktop according to the user profile. So if you are a director again, if you are an operator, what kind of operator you are a marketing operator, and so and so. And what was important also was to be able to include as a standard Eclipse view any type of existing application. Because, of course, you may think in a bank there are a lot of applications, not just, let's say, Eclipse or whatsoever. You have a lot of applications with different technologies. And the main requirement was to include everything so that in one view you may have an Eclipse application, a browser-based application, a C++ application, a Visual Basic application, whatsoever. Okay? In order to have something like this is a real Eclipse RCP application, okay? I had to cancel the log of the bank for privacy, okay? But this is a real application. And what you have here is, of course, is an RCP perspective, several views, okay? The top, on the right side, each view is requesting services from a backend, and you have a working area, and in that working area, for example, here you have an old C++ application that has nothing to do with Eclipse, but from an operator point of view, that is a business application. Okay? So where we are today, probably you didn't know, but the top Italian banks are using RCP in their front end. And today in Italy, there are more than 100,000 users that every day are running business application built on top of RCP. Okay, of course, we had a lot of problems. Okay. The most critical one was that, sure.
Can we go back to the other slide for a second?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Let's say we had a lot of problems. Okay, let's consider again that it wasn't 6 years ago when we started, or 7 years ago. So documentation, okay, we had to pick up articles, we had to browse the code in order to understand how to do everything. We didn't have any framework, or at least we didn't know of any framework, okay? We have seen Scout a couple of minutes ago, other frameworks, and so. So basically, and a framework was required. A banking application is in order to develop a banking application, you have to build about 100 or 200 functions, business functions, okay? Is let's say, it's not a one-man job. It takes, could be 10, many years to develop such an application. So you have to put people, you have to have the same model, same infrastructure, same framework. So we develop a framework that has been improved from one project to the other one. And, okay, we taught the people how to use the framework. Okay, I don't want to go into details, but basically to give you some of the main concept, okay? Let's say, we built components in order to address what is required on a client side. All the stuff is on the client side, okay? We didn't build anything related to the server side. The server side is any server. We just call services. It could be any machine, any application. I want just to spend a couple of words on the what we said, the presentation integration. Let's say we built plugins in order to be able to reparent. That means be able to include, let's say, as you have seen before, a C++ application or a web application inside a view. And we built also a kind of broker. That means to be able to have a kind of bus in the client to share events, to share data, and so and so. Okay, this is just, but I don't have time to go into detail. Okay, where are now? Okay, these are my just personal consideration that I wanted to have the opportunity to share with you in these workshops. Okay, and anytime that we start a new project today, the question that comes is, how do we develop the client? Definitely. So again, the question is, do we go again RCP, or do we go to pure web technology? That is the point of discussion. So we are quite interested in understanding what's going on with Eclipse 4 in order to see which kind of evolution we can provide to the platform. One of the problems that we have seen in the past project is to find resources, skilled people. Normally, when you start a new project, it's easier to find people with a web skill and not RCP skill. That is a real problem. And of course, okay, we could consider RAP, all that kind of stuff, how to reuse what we have done with one technology with a different technology. And so I wanted just to spend a couple of charts about RAP. This is again my personal experience. We did a couple of projects, a couple of prototypes in Italy with RAP. but it was 2 years ago, in 2010. The first prototype was for a bank, and the other one was for an internal project. We built such a proof of concept, okay, but we were not able to move to the production. And the reason was not because RAP, but was because the bank or the internal project didn't accept RCP. Okay, so we considered that RAP was a way in order to reuse what we had built with RCP. Okay, so in both projects, let's say the customer didn't accept RCP, so we couldn't sell RAP. This is just, I wanted to show you a couple of charts related to such an experience. And the first one, this is the RCP application running inside the .NET container. So this is vice versa what I have told you before. And this RCP, you see exactly the same RCP running RAP, and this was based on 2 years ago, RAP that was 2 years ago. And this is another, the proof of concept with RAP. This is an RCP project running RAP, okay? And my last chart, okay, about RAP. Okay, what we appreciated about RAP, and we had the capability to test it, was the single source. We had just one source. We didn't have to develop two different applications, just one source, and we could run on a client, RCP, or on RAP. That was a good point. The bad point for myself was that at that time, the RCP, mainly as far as concerned the SWT, provided more capabilities than what was available was the user interface of RAP. So basically, we couldn't move all the user interface that we had developed from RCP, SWT to RAP, okay? So basically, the lesson that we learned from that project was that if today I have to start a new project considering RCP and RAP, I would consider to build, let's say, a common component that, as far as concerned the UI, provide the same capabilities, and to build something that is specific from one platform and for the other platform if I want to stress the UI capability of a platform. That is my personal experience. And I think that's all. So basically, the objective of my presentation was not to tell you about a product whatsoever, but to share with you that the RCP Eclipse as an RCP, as an application platform, is not something that is related to a small project or whatsoever. Today in Italy, there have been a lot of big projects on that technology. That's it. Okay.
Any questions? Any question? Oh, yeah. Oh, more question?
For what I can see, I think there is a huge difference between the time and the deadline that the bank industry has. So 15 years of for the same product, and at the same time the evolution of the new technology. So if maybe in your next project you decide to use HTML5, after 15 years there will be HTML9. So how you manage this kind of difference between technology and business?
It's not easy to manage that problem because you have to consider what? As soon as the bank decides to start a project, until you go to the first pilot, okay, the first pilot, it will take at least 1 year. I never saw a project with a development cycle less than 1 year. So it takes 1 year from when the banks decide to the pilot, 1 year. Then you have to skill the user, okay, because you provide something new, okay. Then you have to consider that you have to deploy the solution to all the branches. So it will take at least 1 more year to do that. So as soon as you have finished, it's a couple of years. Then you have to, let's say, typically develop new business function because from banking regulation, new capabilities, whatsoever, and then you normally use the same platform, the same technology, okay? So basically, for example, today, all these projects are still running Eclipse 3.4, 3.5, when we know that the next one is 3.8 in a couple of months, okay, for example. So, and we will remain 3.5 for the next 3 or 4 years, okay? So the reason why probably they will need to rebuild or to redo the application in 5 or 10 years is not because, let's say, new business function. That because in 10 years the 3.5 will not be available anymore, or will not be supported anymore, or we will have no skill at all. Okay, so it's not a scenario where you continue building the application with new technology. You start with the technology, you stay with that one, and you do the jump later. Then you go that way, and then you jump again. Because you have to consider this is not a standalone application. It's not the application that you use or myself. You have, I don't know, 20,000 people that are using that application every day. You have to redeploy, you have to reskill, and whatsoever.
Yeah, actually, I don't have a question. I have a little remark. You said Eclipse 3.5 will not be available anymore. Actually, it will be available. However, you are absolutely right, it will not be supported anymore. So at the Eclipse Foundation, and we didn't talk about this today because I think Mike mentioned it earlier today a little, we are in the process of planning an ecosystem where long-term support, 10 to 20 years for Eclipse versions is possible. And if anybody is interested in hearing this, and I think we should talk to the banks you have worked with, we will be here for the afternoon, and we would love to talk about it. So please contact us.
Okay, thank you.